And how do you work together? Is that easy?
This is where it gets stressful.
Yeah.
Because you have that can-do attitude, and I think that's what's really important about being successful, whether as an entrepreneur or as an employee.
There's nothing there that would lead you to believe that you were going to develop a really successful global beauty brand, is there?
No, and luckily they complement each other. I really think that's why it's lasted, and that's why it works. But we do have a no phones policy more than we have a no talking about work policy. And the one thing I would say is definitely make sure that you do your research.
The small negatives, things are always going to pop up. It's life.
Wouldn't change anything, because otherwise I wouldn't be where I am today with the knowledge that I have now.
Yeah. She was far too attractive to be thinking about starting a business. I was just mesmerized.
Hello and welcome to the Happy WorkLife Podcast. Today I'm joined by the founders of the much-loved beauty brand Dr.PAWPAW, husband and wife team Johnny and Pauline Paterson. They launched the business in 2013 after searching for a natural way to soothe their young daughter's eczema. Since then, Dr.PAWPAW have grown into an inclusive multi-use beauty brand made in the UK, sold in more than 30 countries and supporting good causes like the Teenage Cancer Trust. Johnny has been named Great Britain Entrepreneur of the Year, and Pauline has become a strong advocate for female founders, speaking candidly about the challenges of being taken seriously as a woman in business, securing funding and juggling work and family life. Today, we'll talk to them about their backgrounds, the journey from kitchen table idea to global brand, and the hurdles they've overcome, and why Dr.PAWPAW has been recognised as one of the Sunday Times best places to work. Johnny and Pauline, welcome to the podcast. So I always like to start at the beginning, and whether there's anything in your childhoods that would lead us to think that you were going to develop such a successful global now beauty brand. So if I start with you, Pauline, anything that you did in your school days or your college days that would lead us to believe that you were going to be successful in this way?
Unfortunately, no. No, I don't have any one of those stories that, I started buying things as a kid and then, selling one for more, any entrepreneurial spirit like that. I think that throughout my career, actually, I didn't go to university. I haven't got a degree. I didn't actually even finish high school. But I think by getting out in the workforce quite early, I was very determined and also very I wanted to grow up quickly. I know I wanted to grow up quickly. I didn't really get along with school and I didn't really like it. I wanted to get out in the workforce and start making a difference. And so I think having that drive and that ambition, and even though I've always sort of started at the bottom and worked my way up, I always had that belief that I was going to do something and that I wanted to do something. I was never quite happy with the every day. So every time I got a job, I was looking at how could I do that better? How could I manage that? How could I step that up? And then I do think later on in my career as well, I did soon start to realize, especially after I met Johnny, that actually I really just want to be my own boss, just because, I'm tired of my ideas not being taken. I can see things. I want to do things my way. So, things like that is sort of what led really to us starting the business, but also starting the business was meant to be just a side hustle as well.
And where did you get that drive from, you think? Do your parents have that?
Yeah, possibly, maybe. My dad did have his own business as well, but I just always knew that I wanted to do something and be the best in every job I had. So even if I was waitressing tables or if I was working at Burger King, I wanted to get that promotion. I always wanted to be better. I didn't want to just stay at that level. I just had that drive to always get that promotion, to get higher and to aim higher.
And what about you, Johnny? Anything in your childhood that...
Yeah, actually, it's weird that you asked this question, because I probably about 10 years ago started to reflect back on my past and then noticed those moments. And I think the first one would be between the ages of about 4 and 7, going to my local Asda superstore, and my mum and dad would have lost me and they don't know where I was, and I was collecting trolleys and bringing them back to the trolley guy and getting £1 per trolley. Well, not a pound, would have been a lot of money back then, but I was receiving money for that. My mother and father had a cash and carry, and I would always help out in that store on a Sunday. helping carry bags, price tagging, because we used to have you remember the staple type gun that you would price tag and put the label on. And then I think when I was in my first like jobs coming out of school, I worked in pubs, and there was one particular pub that I worked in that was taking about £400 to £500 a week, and I just thought it's terrible takings, really. And I suggested to the guy, you know, could I bring in a DJ on a Thursday? Now I was DJing at the time, so I brought in my set and DJ, and we brought in £2,000 that week. And then I introduced a quiz on a Tuesday, and then by the end, I mean, this pub had gone from bless you, this pub had gone from doing, you know, like a couple of £1,000 a month to doing nearly 10,000 a month. And then I didn't really recognize, even up until, like I said, this reflection about 10 years ago, that I was naturally entrepreneurial, should we say.
So what were your first jobs when you left school, college? What were your first jobs?
Well, I worked in the co-op, I worked in pubs, and I worked for Lloyd's TSB selling insurance.
And you, Pauline?
Yeah, well, mine was Burger King and waitressing, but what really gave me the stats was when I got into hairdressing. And that was like an absolute passion of mine. I absolutely loved it. I loved working with my hands. I loved working with people. I loved seeing all the fashions. And in that hairdressing world, there are so many different avenues, you know, that you can go. Yes, you can work in a salon, but you can also teach. You know, you can also, I ended up working for a very big product house that was a global brand. So I was at the forefront of the fashion, at the forefront of the products coming out. And that to me, I mean, I was in that career for over 20 years because I was literally just like, I can do so many different things here and go into so many different avenues. But yeah, I did start off.
So for all those people listening to this podcast, there's nothing there that would lead you to believe that you were going to develop a really successful global beauty brand, is there?
No.
You wouldn't go, oh yeah, that's a really obvious link. I spent some time in Unilever working on Dove, and then I had the idea. So I mean, that's incredible. I mean, we'll come on to now how you got the idea.
I think, sorry, something that Pauline said at the very start, which I think is really the most important thing, is whatever she did or whatever I did, I was the best at it. And I think when you behave like that, and we regularly talk to our team members at Dr.PAWPAW, if you behave in that way, well, what's going to happen to you in your career? You're not going to stall, are you? You're only going to grow and earn more, grow more, probably start your own beauty business or food business, because you have that can-do attitude. And I think that's what's really important about being successful, whether as an entrepreneur or as an employee, if we have to call it that. We prefer team members.
And before we come on to how you had the idea and grew the brand, how did you both meet?
Through the hair industry.
Yeah, through hairdressing. So once I'd finished all my Lloyd's TSB and working in pubs, I decided to knuckle down. My mum and dad actually had a PR agency, and I said to Dad, look, can I come and join you? And so I ended up doing public relations. So, I mean, that started to give me my ideas around marketing, colors, selling, brightness, how things really work as a 360 within a business. And then Pauline was working with a friend who I ended up doing PR for. And then we met through the British Hairdressing Awards.
Mm.
Wow.
Yeah. The Grosvenor Park Hotel, 22 years ago, something like that.
Yes.
And when you met, did you talk about maybe setting up a business?
No, not really.
No,
not really.
no.
We were in our 20s. We weren't really thinking about setting up a business then.
Yeah. She was far too attractive to be thinking about starting a business. I was just mesmerized.
So tell us then about how Dr.PAWPAW came about.
Yep. Come on.
So it came about through a necessity, really. Our daughter, our first born daughter as a baby, got really bad eczema, and we tried everything off shelf and it didn't work. So then we took her to the GP, and the only thing they recommended was steroid creams. And again, coming from the hairdressing industry, I knew how delicate baby skin was. and I knew how harsh a chemical steroids was. So I was like, we're definitely not doing that. We need to go and find a natural alternative. So me being from Australia, we use the pawpaw fruit, which is also known as papaya fruit over here, in almost everything and anything. And you think it was always one of the stories that you say, isn't it? You came to Australia and you saw my family and they were like putting it in their hair. She was putting it on their baby's bum for nappy rash. They were putting it on their lips. Obviously not the same jar, but it was literally running the whole family. And any problem, the whole family were going to this one product and using it. And so, I was trying our alternative, product, and that seemed to work. And actually, the funniest story or the biggest twist of fate was we actually tried to bring over that Australian brand, and they said no to us. And whilst we were devastated at the time that we got a no, it's actually what made us make it, because otherwise we just would have been selling somebody else's brand. But then we decided to make our own, make it more natural, make it more global, make sure we're ready to export, because that was one of the things that everyone says it's very hard to get these Australian products over here. And so we knew right from the offset, we need to make this globally available.
Yeah, with my marketing background, I'd been seeing Holly Willoughby talking in the Daily Mail, and she was saying that you can't buy these products because they're only available in Australia. But if you're there, make sure you get them and bring them back. We'd seen that the Chinese, the Australian government put a ban on Chinese people coming and buying bucket loads of it and taking it home to China. So we knew that there was an opportunity there, but I think like everything that we do, we spotted the flaws in business anyway, because we didn't want to create a copycat. We wanted to create our own style and also disrupt lip care, because lip care has been the same three players for 100 years. Vaseline, Carmex, and Burt's Bees. They're very famous and great brands. But we wanted to do what nobody else has done and be natural and vegan. And, which is a big part of our story, giving back. So our products are sustainable, where they come from 30% PCR plastic, the cardboard's recyclable, and we take a percentage of our sales and donate to charities.
That's fantastic. And I expect there are a number of people listening to this podcast who think, I'd love to have my own business. And they may have got as far as to saying, I've seen an opportunity, as you did. So how do you take that opportunity into real life? You've been to Australia, you've tried Pawpaw, it's worked on your daughter, you're going, this is fantastic, I can't get it in the UK. What do you do next? Because I'm assuming you're both working, you've got jobs.
Yeah.
So what do you do? Do you give up your jobs? How do you get money? Where do you get the product from? How do you make it? What did you do?
I think the key word, and you have to ask yourself, is determination. Are you determined to keep going? Because you've got to be determined to work late hours. You've got to be determined to find the right product. You've got to be determined to find the cash to fund it. You've got to be determined to run and work 2 jobs. You've got to be determined that you're going to get turned down, told you're rubbish, you've got no idea, but you've got to keep going. And that's the thing. So I suppose my key message would be is your determination. But aside of that, I mean, everything else you can find out on the internet or ask ChatGTP, because you say, I need to find a manufacturer. It will tell you. I need to speak to a buyer. It will tell you. You can go onto LinkedIn and search all these buyers. All these things are now readily available that perhaps we didn't have at the touch of a mobile phone back then. But I think to try and tidy it up, it does need to be thought of with determination, because I think that's been our thing every year. Something will crop up that is extremely stressful. You think, why are we doing this? Can we go again? And any entrepreneur that's doing this will tell you the same. And if they're telling you otherwise, they are lying, because it's stressful. It's very stressful.
And
but
how do you
rewarding.
And how do you work together? Is that easy?
This is where it gets stressful.
Yeah. So I think again, initially at the start, yes, we were working 2 jobs. So we were doing a lot in the evenings, even though we had Jasmine, she would go to bed early enough that we would be able to sort of work on it in the evenings. Again, luckily with Johnny's expertise as well, he did have a marketing team behind us. So we could also utilize their strength, not they didn't do a lot for us, but we could utilize their knowledge and their strength. And I think that's the difference, that what I brought to the table was that I'd worked with products, launching products. I understood the ingredients that were going in there. I understood everything that I wanted in this product and what I didn't want in this product. So I was able to talk to the suppliers, pitch to them, brief them, tell them everything I wanted. And then Johnny knew exactly how he was going to sell it and market it. So then, it was almost like handing over to him. So even though we were talking at the same, and actually this is the split of how we do it now. We definitely cross over because we have to, but because I'm in charge of NPD, like new product development now, I'm there creating the products, setting the briefs, saying everything we want in it, what textures we want, what colors we want, what we want it to look like. And then, it sort of comes to fruition, and then Johnny sells it and markets it. I mean, obviously he still has a say in NPD because I listen to what the buyers are saying and what they want. And then I also sometimes go to the pictures because I've created the product. Who better to present it in the pictures than me? So we still cross over. But I think because our strengths were so different is why it works. I think if we were both very ambitious salespeople and competing against each other, we probably still wouldn't be married. But because we kind of, know our lanes, know our strengths, and luckily they complement each other. I really think that's why it's lasted, and that's why it works.
And do you have any rules about sort of like after 7 o'clock at night, we promise not to talk about work, or how does that work?
I do, Mark. No.
But you like to break them all the time.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, clearly over the years it's changed. I think in the early years we took whatever time we could get because I was still running a full-time. I took on the PR agency from my parents, and it actually became quite successful. So I was doing that plus doing the PR, and I did that for 6 years. It was a challenge. But nowadays we probably really do focus on one evening a week where we will sit down and discuss work, the things that need to be discussed, plus personal stuff, because there's obviously everything going on with the children and our house, etc. And then a lot of it now, because we have this amazing team around us, they take on a lot of the things as well. It's not really just down to us anymore. They have just as much input as us, and for us to sit away at home beavering all our ideas, I think that's where you get dictatorships and a business that's not running smoothly. We do it as a collective and we try to keep it at work.
Yeah, but I do think that sometimes a work-life balance is hard because we are quite often we're in different meetings a lot of the time, so we don't actually get to talk until we do get home. But we do definitely make a rule, like there's no phones at the dinner table. We always do sort of talk at dinner time with the kids, even if we're asking them how their day is, and you don't get a lot back, it's fine. And then if we start talking about work, like we start talking about one of the collaborations, and the kids are like, oh yeah, that's amazing, you should do this. So the kids do definitely get involved in it as well. And they love to know like what we're doing next and what to do, and put their input in, especially Jasmine at 14 and even Jackson at 11 now. So they do hear us talk. We can't absolutely leave work at the door and then just focus on home life, because it is part of all of us, especially I think in lockdown they saw a lot of that as well. And so I would say they're kind of part of the family, but we do have a no phones policy more than we have a no talking about work policy. That's more effective.
Can I ask you each about the biggest challenges that you've had setting up Dr. PAWPAW? And Pauline, I'd like to come to you first, because you've spoken very eloquently and very robustly about the challenges that females face as founders. So do you just want to talk a little about that? Some of the challenges that you think women uniquely might feel as founders of businesses?
Yeah, I think as a woman, it is hard to be taken seriously. And I think that there's lots of figures out there to sort of back that up and prove that. For example, only 2% of funding goes to female funded businesses, which is crazy to think that 98% just goes to one sex, whatever sex that is. It's nowhere near an even split. And again, a lot of the female founders I have, it's hard to be taken serious by banks. It's hard to be taken serious by by buyers, even though, again, sort of like in the beauty industry as well, you know, I think that's even harder, because it's very hard if you're not the consumer, like, you know, if you're not a mother using a baby product or going, yes, you need that product, or if, you know, I don't know, you don't clean the house, so you don't understand that cleaning product, or, you know, anything, you don't wear those shoes, you don't wear heels, so you don't understand, you know, whatever it is. I think that it's hard to be taken seriously, and it's hard to put your business across if the person you're talking to doesn't understand the need of it, and then it just becomes a number crunching thing, and it's very hard to predict. I mean, even now, sometimes with some of our launches, we're like, how much do you think we're going to sell? It's like, well, where's the crystal ball? Do you know what I mean? But last year we sold X amount on this, which was amazing, but this is a completely new product. Like, you know, and the bank's like wants us to justify, well, how much of that do you think you're going to sell? And we're like, you know, trying to look at everything, but it is real crystal ball moments. But I do understand as well that people do need to be wary, and they are wary of making mistakes and making bad investments, and buyers putting in stock into their shelves that don't sell. But I just think people need to be sort of, you know, taken more at face value. And it's like, if they've got a good idea, and they believe it, and they're really passionate about it, and, you know, they're going to work all hours to get that across, then just give them a chance. Because certainly in my background, again, being a hairdresser, being female, trying to sell lip balm, everyone's just like, well, that's not going to make money, is it? That's just like, you know, you going shopping, or you know, doing a hobby. Whereas it's like, again, you can see even with the budget, the beauty industry, even through COVID, was the one industry that grew and continues to grow, no matter what is happening in the world, the wars, the recessions, anything. It is always the beauty industry that keeps growing. So it is a reputable business. And that's what I would like, is just to be taken more seriously. You know, that we're not just having a laugh.
And what advice would you give to women listening to this that are thinking of setting up their business?
There are amazing networking groups now as well that you can join. And the one thing I would say is definitely make sure that you do your research. So really do your research into the field that you want to go into. So the field that you want to go into, whether it's food, whether it's fashion, whether it's beauty, know that area, know who your competitors are, know where you're going to sit, know where you're going to price your product at, because what consumer are you talking to? Are you talking to mums? Are you talking to teenagers? Are you talking to, you know, more mature people? You know, who is your audience? And then really doing that research and speaking to them. And then again, you know, sort of going to networking events, going to different entrepreneur events, and talking to other people as well, so that you kind of get that sounding board, which is something that we certainly never had starting out, but it's something that we do a lot of. And we do a lot of like mentors and talks and things like that, where people can come up and talk to us as well, because we love sharing now. And a lot of entrepreneurs now, they love sharing, and they love, you know, what we call paying it forward. So I would say do your research, and then look at different networking events, so that you can learn about the struggles, and learn, you know, sort of the banking, and how you can talk to them, and what you need, and the language and things like that.
Great. And then for you, Johnny, what would you say has been the toughest challenge?
Yeah, I was just quietly thinking while Pauline was talking. I think it's always any type of criticism, I would say. But then I was thinking, but I've always dusted it off and gone again the next morning. But that's a thing that I have, that when you have a bad day, I generally let it be bad for a few more hours, and then I wake up the next day and go, right, I'll show you. So even though it's criticism, it's probably been the best thing that's ever happened, because it's the fuel to do the next day. And just some examples, we've had some customers or retailers that have said things which I don't think need to be said, and it's very few and far between that's been said, but I've used it. I actually have one from a distributor who I won't name, and I actually am getting it framed so that I can put it in my bathroom, and every day I look at it and go, thank you, because it gives me the energy to prove them wrong, which I know sounds a bit weird. But we also went through an investment process, which took around 18 months. And yeah, that was particularly challenging, because it is like somebody saying that your gorgeous baby is ugly, because they literally pick at everything. And they're not doing it to get at you. They're doing it because they want to see your resilience, and they want to see what your answers are to probably what their questions that they're getting from their investors when they put into this big pot. So yeah, I think it's the criticism, but I can take it, but I suppose I've learned to use it.
One of my favorite quotes on startups and scale-ups was Elon Musk, who said, "It's like chewing glass, staring into the abyss."
Yeah.
I thought that was a pretty good description. And what you're talking about, Johnny, is really having that resilience, because you get knocked all the time, and there are lots of bumps in the road, aren't there?
And I suppose the other thing is there's nobody to go to. And the end of the day, the buck stops with us ultimately. I mean, obviously, we now have an investor, we have a board, we have a business mentor. Obviously, the team are here, but the team rely on us as their leaders. We can't go in there panicking because they think, well, why are we here? You're supposed to be the leadership. So, but yeah, it's okay. And the thing is, I think we've got to a point now where the wins are far outweighing the small negatives. Things are always going to pop up. It's life.
Well, let me ask you both, would you have had it any other way?
So I get asked this. So it's usually said is, do you have any regrets? Which is probably another way of saying it. I don't think you can ever have regrets, because the only reason why we're here the way we are is because of what we did. If I was starting another business tomorrow, would I do it the same? Well, no, because what I would do is use all the shortcuts to just get here quicker. I would probably do all the things that the VCs and the PEs want to see quite quickly if that's the route that I chose to go down. So no, there's no real regrets, because also as well, we've got a business that people genuinely really love buying and working for. And I think surely it has to be also a bit about legacy. It shouldn't just always be about money.
Yeah, I know, and yeah, and I mean, I agree. I definitely wouldn't have had it any other way, because I had no experience coming into this, and I've grown so much and learnt so much. And yes, I have made mistakes along the way, but I think if it was handed to me on a plate, then I wouldn't have made these mistakes, and I wouldn't have, learnt these things. And one of the things that I love about when, we do look at our team now of 20, because it literally did start off with me and Johnny, it's like, I've literally done all of your jobs. I've literally been in all of your shoes, in a much smaller scale, but I totally understand the whole business. And again, I think if I just walked in, whatever being given to me, I wouldn't understand the running of the whole business. But again, yes, like Johnny, if we were to do it again, we would do it differently, of course, because we're experienced now and we know how to get there quicker. And again, I think that's one of the things, when I am mentoring other small businesses, or if people are asking me, like my advice, I said, look, I'm no expert, but now I can see a lot clearly, and yes, I think you should do this before you do this, or I think you should do this way and then do that after, when you've got a bit more money. It's sort of things like that. But again, it is only advice. But yeah, I definitely wouldn't change anything, because otherwise I wouldn't be where I am today with the knowledge that I have now.
And you've mentioned your team a number of times.
Mm.
And for 2 years running now, you've been a Sunday Times best place to work. So which is fantastic. So tell me about that. Tell me about why you think your team think you are one of the best places to work in the UK.
I think if I go back to day one of when we started the business, we created something called the company culture document. Having been in public relations, I worked with manufacturers, some really, really big corporates, conglomerates, as Pauline has worked for. And the one thing that I was always quite shocked, and even at my time at, say, Lloyd's TSB, you'd be employed, you'd go into work, and then they would never tell you what the expectations were, what your expectations should be of them, and ultimately why we're doing it. Now, that seems like a really stupid thing to say, because ultimately we go to work to earn money to live our lives. Or could it be something that you feel really proud of on your deathbed one day and you go, that was a time in my life where I was doing something that meant something and it was going somewhere. So we created this culture document, and I think, I could go into loads of details about it, but I think that set a standard of what we expect of them and us. And then it's almost like this written rule between us of what we can achieve together. And I just quickly, and I'll let Pauline do her bit, someone sent me a message yesterday from Teenage Cancer Trust, and it was to say that in the last 5 years we've donated £191,000. And I said, the next time somebody tells me that we just sell lip balm, I'm going to reply with that comment, because that's the difference, isn't it? You don't just have to be a business where people go to work, earn money. We create a culture where people feel happy, they earn their money, they grow in their careers, but we're also doing something that's worthwhile. I mean, yes, we're selling a product that's great, but actually it's changing people's lives, and not in a greenwashing type of way, like a real, how do I put it? A real way that you can actually see and feel.
That's great.
Yeah, definitely. And I think certainly for me, again, coming, out of having lots of different jobs, and again, Johnny working with different customers, we kind of knew exactly the kind of bosses we didn't want to be. Because when you have, it's like when you have a great teacher at school and then you have a really awful teacher at school. I had some amazing bosses and some really, really awful ones that, almost made me leave if I didn't leave. And we knew exactly what we didn't want to be. We wanted to create that culture that felt like a family, that you don't dread Monday mornings, that you want to come to work. And and with that, again, because we're still small, we can be adaptable, and we do listen to what they need. Through COVID, we went in with 8 people and we came out with 12, and those still 8 people, which was amazing, because COVID was such a revelation time. It was like, oh my God, I hate my job, I want to go off in this direction. And we actually kept our team. We've had 4 mums go off on maternity leave and all come back, again, having 1 or some of them 2 children as well, and still come back because they know how good it is here, how welcoming we are, how understandable we are, because we're parents as well. We've sort of done all these stages of our life as well. We've had 2 weddings as well. It's just, we've had people buying their new houses, we've had people buying, their first cars, we've had everything, and we celebrate it all, and we give them the opportunities to do that. So I think, it's just creating the kind of workplace that you want to work at. Like, what do you want to do when you go into work? Everything's very colorful, everything's very bright. If people have issues, we listen to them. Yeah, our dog comes in, so everyone gets a little pat, a little bit of therapy if they're having a stressful day. She's a British bulldog, so she's very lazy, so she loves a pat. But yeah, we just always think about where would we want to work, like, because we want to not walk in on a Monday morning dreading having to come here and leave our kids, so we just think about everything that we would want, and where we can do it because it's just us still at the helm, and we can be adaptable as we want.
Great. And then my last question to you both is obviously about the future. So you've done amazingly well. You've built a great brand. As we've said, 30 countries now around the world. What does the future look like for each of you?
Well, I mean, I'm still having fun, so I'm not quite ready to retire just yet. So, and again, obviously in my mind, I'm already working on next Christmas. I've been working on next Christmas for like the last 2 months, so I'm always sort of working a year in advance. So there's definitely more products to come out. There's definitely more fun collaborations as well to do. We definitely need to grow the team a bit more as well. So yeah, it's just looking always forward at what we can do to keep having fun and keep doing it. But yeah, I'm really enjoying the stage that we're at now. So I'm still happy coming to work.
Yeah, I mean, for like business wise, we've got an organizational chart now. I mean, listen to this. Ooh. And so we've got in all our heads, we've got in all our experience. So now we're working with the local college to start bringing in assistants who will grow inside the business and be our next heads, next leaders, etc. And then everything that Pauline said, I mean, we have annualization now, which we have to achieve every single year. So obviously growth is a key part of that. We recently won the King's Award. So we got to meet the King himself, His Majesty. That was good. So I think looking for some more accolades just to really, shout about what the business does. But I mean, personally, we often get asked, what are you going to do next? Is there going to be another product? Is there going to be another business? And I mean, I have repeatedly said no way, because, you know, I'm a big believer in enjoying my life as well, if that makes sense. You know, I'm looking to travel, etc. But we ultimately know where we want to end up as well. So we've got a retirement plan, which sounds crazy because I'm 43, but I'm a planner and like to be organized. So yeah, the future's exciting, shall we say.
Well, it's fantastic to hear. Thank you both so much for sharing your amazing story of how you came about to build a business. And also, we should say congratulations for all you do for Teenage Cancer Trust.
Oh, thank you so much.
And the great work you do there. It's been a joy talking to you. And I'm sure all of our listeners will have learnt a lot about what it takes to grow a successful business. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mark.
Thank you.